Hello, and welcome to our Wellbeing at Work podcast series. My name is Amber Scott, and I am a Director of Business Solutions in the U.S. here at Workplace Options. And I am so pleased to welcome Brent Hines, currently serving as the Chief Development Officer and CEO of the Financial Wellness Group. Brent has more than 24 years of experience in the finance industry and is a champion of financial wellness and empowerment. Brent, thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome.
You bet. Thanks, Amber. I've been actually really looking forward to having this conversation with you today. So glad the time is now.
Excellent. So just have a few questions for you today, Brent. I think it'd be great for you to be able to share your knowledge about financial wellness today. So we'll just get right into it.
Great.
What have you seen to be the biggest source of financial stress for employees today?
Boy, so there's a lot to pick from. These can be very stressful times for a lot of people. And by the way, up and down the demographics, this is not specific to any one specific sector of income or of financial sophistication or geographics or in any of it. There's financial stress everywhere. And I would say, with, all of the classes and the counseling that we do, if I had to pick maybe the top three, right now, inflation is the number one topic that we're seeing inside of our counseling sessions. Just cost of living increases, housing, healthcare, groceries, just essentials, outpacing wage growth. And we, especially here in the U.S., we live on a razor's edge in terms of what we make and what we're spending. And it takes just the smallest kind of blip on the radar and we can go spiraling out of control, way too often and way too far. So I'd say cost of living, number one. Number two is the ongoing, ever growing, personal debt. And when we say debt here, at the Foundation for Financial Wellness, we're typically referring to consumer debt, high interest, non-deductible, bad debt, from student loans to credit cards to other, financing options that maybe we took on at a moment of weakness when we should have been spending cash kind of thing. So the amount of debt in the country is staggering. And those debt payments don't go away when there's a blip on the radar as well. And then I'd say number three is insufficient savings. When I mentioned a minute ago that we live on a razor's edge here of what we make and what we spend it before we make it, and then we tend to spend more than we make on top of it. The idea of an emergency cash reserve being a firewall against something unpredictable or unplanned happening, the old Murphy's Law, the rule of Murphy's Law, and keeping Murphy kind of on that side of the firewall, oftentimes is as little as a emergency cash reserve of maybe $1,000 or a few $100s. It's better than nothing. And it's such a boring topic, quite honestly, like when we're teaching classes or when we're doing interviews or putting out content, to slow down and talk about emergency cash. It's a big yawner, put me to sleep kind of thing. But when something does happen, and inevitably it will, with the house, with the car, with the kids' sports, with an illness, in anything, and the vast majority of items that we, again here in the U.S., consider to be an emergency are oftentimes less than $1,000. So it can really change the trajectory of someone's financial life by having just some simple guardrails in place like that. So it's a quick summary. I kind of gave you a long answer: cost of living, eliminating debt, and then not having an emergency cash reserve. Those would be the three biggies that we see causing the most common source of stress that people are bringing to the work site.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting to hear. And I think that people quite often know that those are the things that they need to be paying attention to, but oftentimes are not. Brent, what do you think are the fundamental principles of financial well-being for employees? This is something where I think employers and employees struggle with kind of understanding what the principles are. So if you could share your thoughts here, that would be great.
I love this question. You're right. The financial services industry is throwing around the term financial wellness or financial well-being. So it's kind of fortunately, yet unfortunately, fortunately, the term is being used and it's becoming mainstream, and it's it's, becoming in our culture, something that we're talking about. Unfortunately, it's oftentimes being used as a way to just pitch more financial product or services, and nothing against financial product or services, but call it financial product. Don't call it financial well-being. Now this is our bias here. So to me, when it says, well, what is financial well-being? To me, it's in the title, financial well-being. It's a way of being. It's not a destination. It's not a dollar amount. It's part of our total well-being. We tend to here at the foundation, we tend to lean on the total well-being model from the National Wellness Institute. Not that it's good or bad. There's a lot of models. That's just the one that we tend to lean on. And there's 6 dimensions of wellness, and you could put an entire teaching series together on the impact of financial stress on every dimension of life. It becomes noxious. There's no stopping it. It does not live in a clean little airtight space where, okay, I have financial stress, but thankfully it's not affecting my relationships, or thankfully it's not affecting my work. Thankfully it's not affecting my physical health. It does. It absolutely does. So financial well-being, from our perspective, it's got to have 3 primary components, and the trifecta would be a way of being. These are our thinking or our beliefs. The psychologists would refer scripts, tapes, or records, right? It's the 6 inches between our ears. Number 2, it's the behaviors or the doing. In our classes, we tend to say, hey, look, behaviors tend to come in one of 3 flavors when it comes to financial well-being: good behaviors, bad behaviors, and then the missing behaviors. And the missing behaviors are oftentimes the most dangerous and the most harmful. And then third would be the actual systems in place. So I don't know if you're familiar or not, Amber, with the old kind of a methodology referred to as be, do, have. I love be, do, have. It was introduced to me by a coach about 20 years ago, and I start to see the world through be, do, have. And is this a being problem, a doing problem, or a having problem? And I think the vast majority of people really truly trying to do financial wellness, if you will, they go straight to the have, and that have is oftentimes education. And financial education is great, but financial education alone is not enough. That is not fixing the problem. We have access to every answer to every financial question you could possibly ask, literally in the palm of our hand today, but yet arguably we're misbehaving with money worse than ever. So we go, look, you got to have the systems. You got to know how money works. And that's great. And we've got a library of education. That was our start. But then we got really involved in the behavioral sciences, the doing. What are the behaviors having to do with our financial life, that financial dimension of our total well-being? And if you want to understand the behavior, you need to take one more step back and look at those 6 inches between our ears. What is it that we believe to be true about money? What are those scripts that we were given oftentimes at a very young age in life? So it's our thinking that turns into our words, which turns into our behavior, which turns into our have. What is it that we have? Too oftentimes it's financial stress, not a way of being that is financially well or financial well-being.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really great information, and I think that it gives the listeners something really to think about. So with that, what do you think, Brent? What do you think organizations have a duty of care in preparing and educating their employees on financial wellness? Some of the things that you've already been talking about today on this podcast.
Yeah, I don't know about, a legally mandated duty of care, but I sure can make a strong business case for a duty of care argument, emphasizing the benefits to both the employee and the employer. So making that, duty of care argument a strategic and ethical consideration, I think, right? There's a business case and there's an ethical case. for employee well-being. Employees are stressed. They are. Financial stress tends to be the number one cause of stress of employees, and financially stressed employees are expensive. So there's the I care about people argument, and then there's the financial, the business case argument. So there's that. With that also comes improved productivity when people are more financially well. And we measure on all three of those components that I just mentioned before, their being, their doing, and their having. So improved productivity, retention and engagement. There's hard data on that. Why people are leaving one employer to go to another for financial reasons that are oftentimes so small, and it's so avoidable, and turnover, as we're all aware, is so expensive. Attracting new talent, and then maybe just this, I would probably also make a corporate social responsibility argument around this too. So I think, it's becoming something that employers are increasingly expected to take a broader role in societal well-being. So by educating employees on what is financial wellness and their personal financial well-being, organizations are contributing to the financial literacy of the workforce, right? Which then has positive ripple effects in society at large. So I think you can make a very strong argument, for that duty of care, for those points.
Mm-hmm. Those are all great points. I think when employers hear that financially stressed employees can be expensive, that if they're addressing financial issues with employees, it could improve their productivity. And of course, retention of employees impacts organizations as well. So those are all really great points. Thanks for sharing those. Thanks. My next question, how have you seen financial stress impact different demographics? And asking this and going back to what you said earlier, it doesn't matter if you're a desk worker, if you're working in the manufacturing plant, if you have a lot of money, if you don't have a lot of money. Financial wellness and well-being and information is for everybody. But how have you seen the stress impact different demographics in the workforce?
Yeah, they are showing up with very different concerns. There's unfortunately just a plethora of possible stressors, triggers of those stressors, and then how that shows up in their lives and all dimensions of their total well-being, right? So there's a lot of variations of stress, and if you take let's just say, as an example, like a young professional just starting out in their career, they're showing up and saying things like, how in the world am I ever going to get this student loan debt anchor around my neck off? How am I ever going to do that? If it feels impossible, it's going to take forever. Or something we're hearing really often now is, how in the world am I ever going to be able to afford to buy a house at these home prices, right? Like it seems crazy, where maybe that single parent, middle age, might be, prioritizing the utilization of their employee benefits to the fullest. Or maybe that person that's nearing retirement, wondering, am I on track? Do I have enough money? How am I going to replace my income? How's that going to be taxed? What about health insurance? You know what I mean? It's overwhelming. What if this inflation keeps doing this right as I retire? Is this crazy for me to even be thinking this way? Right. So, I think I'm agreeing with the question, when you asked, hey, what are the different, impacts to the different demographics? They're absolutely showing up with different concerns. So there's not a silver bullet. There's not a magic pill that we can take. Hey, you just, we diagnose and prescribe the same medicine each time. But what is consistent, across the different demographics, is that most of them are missing a model to follow, either a philosophy, or even better, a methodology where they can track, hey, where do I get my information? How do I monitor which behaviors could be improved upon? How much difference would it make? So we're big proponents on find a model, either create your own or use someone else's and lean on it. We have something that we trademarked, the financial operating system. It's built on, as an example, that's built on vision, values, and then the three that I mentioned earlier, beliefs, behaviors, and systems. So like, I love that your financial operating system, regardless of your flavor of stress, financial stress, to be built on your personal values. So that's an example of the methodology is there, but the actual operating system is specifically yours, because no one can tell you that your values are right or wrong. Like, they don't get to, like, they're mine. My values are my values, and vision is something much bigger than a goal. It's of life and legacy. So if my values and my vision are aligned, and then I build my beliefs, behaviors, and systems on top of those two pillars, like, that's our model. Like, I feel empowered talking about it. 14 years into doing this, like, I love having a model to follow. So, they show up with different things, but really at the end of the day, the most common need is of a system, or I call it a model. I like framework, is a system to follow. So that is almost always where the conversations with us go, is we listen a lot, and how's that impacting them and their total well-being. And then we suggest a methodology if they don't have one of their own.
That's great. That actually really leads into my next question. So I'd love to hear you talk about that a little bit more. My question is, from your experience, how can well-being programs be tailored to address financial issues and provide relevant resources? And you said previously that people need to find a model. They either need to create that model or they need to subscribe to a model. And so can you just talk a little bit more about that, Brent?
Yeah, happy to. We actually created very recently, just a couple of weeks ago, we created a new white paper. I'm happy to share it with your audience. We can put a link in the show notes to download it. But the two biggies, I would say, are, number one, define what success looks like. So if I'm speaking to you as if you are the employer. Okay. So one, what does success look like? And then number two, do what has been proven to work rather than what standard protocol. So, what we've been doing, we in financial literacy, financial education, and now everyone throwing around the word financial wellness, so far, like, I'm going to be real, it's not working that great. Like, and in most of it is because it's education alone. So, like, have the guts to do something a little different, and let's look at the data, like what's working and what's not. So that, number one, start with the end in mind, define your success metrics. So just answer some simple questions like, hey, how will we know if this is working or not? Like, let's look 6 months down the road and we go, hey, is this working? So how are we going to measure if it's working or not, and defining that ahead of time? Every organization's, got different priorities, culture, issues, et cetera. So like good old Zig Ziglar said, if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. So we love defining the success metrics first. And then two, over, these last 14 plus years in this game, we have determined that there is a total of 6 pillars. That's actually what the white paper is written about. There's 6 pillars of a profitable employee financial wellness program. And we were really intentional with that word profitable. I think in the wellness industry, there's this hesitation, reluctance to talk about return on investment, or financial performance. And I know it could be a hotly debated topic. But from our angle, for a financial wellness program, our belief is if it's done right, it is profitable. And again, we need to look at the success metrics to determine, okay, how are we going to determine what is profitable or not? So, here we go. One would be the methodology. So, pick a methodology, build your own, borrow someone else's. But financial wellness starts with understanding the psychology of money. That's our model. That then leads into the behavior change modeling, and then the financial guidance, right? The systems. Our bias, again, is that these be, it's got to be non-solicitous and free from any conflict of interest. Like, as soon as an employee or a participant in the program senses that, oh, there's a sales pitch coming at the end of this, right? Like defense walls go up. We're less likely to learn, to be open to new ideas because we're worried about getting sold something. And again, I hope I don't sound like I'm anti financial services and financial product. I'm not at all, but this is supposed to be a financial well-being conversation, right? Like, why are we going to product? So that's a thing for us. Number 2 would be the education. So if you have the methodology, and then it leads into the education, pay attention to the multimodality learning needed by your employee base. Not everyone is only visual or auditory or kinesthetic. Like paying attention, it's just some small shifts that can engage quite a bit higher participation if it's not a one-size-fits-all. Number 3 would be communication. We believe in tailored communication. And you're like, well, how in the world could you tailor communication to a large employee base? We use an assessment. We have our own. You don't have to use ours. You could build your own or you can lean on someone else's. But as people enter the program, the assessment is step number 1. And there's no personal data, shared. But the questions are based in all 3 categories of being, doing, and having systems. And not good, not bad. It's just an assessment. It just is. It's like an x-ray of your financial well-being. And that gives the program, like if in hours, when we're running hours, it tells us how best to communicate with each participant. So I love the idea of putting the right message in front of the right person at the right time. So this combination of data without getting too personal or like AI creepy, but using data for good, of saying, hey, look, this person probably needs to hear this set of messaging versus that set of messaging given where they're at in life and what they're sharing with us about themselves. So it can be tailored. If it can be proactive and predictive, even better, even better. Number 4. One-on-one counseling, some form, call it coaching, we call it counseling. It needs to be confidential. People need to feel safe that they can bring their issues to that conversation. When we added, 12 years ago now, our one-on-one counseling, it's baked into our programs. It's included. Behavior change was like spiked. People would not raise their hand and ask questions amongst their peers, but they would bring like everything to the counseling session. So much so that we had to create a counseling training, and we brought in professional coaches, professional licensed counselors to share some concepts with our financial wellness counselors from the counseling and the coaching world so that we can best serve people without trying to be something that we're not. So counseling, some form of counseling or coaching, crazy important. It got to be confidential. And then whoever the people are that are delivering the counseling, some form of qualification and or credentialing is super helpful. I know there are a lot of people that are fully capable and able and super talented who are not, qualified, like credentialed or licensed. But overall, as a program, as a recommendation, bringing credibility to that counseling session will increase the percentage of people who are taking advantage of the counseling. And then the last one here is, I mentioned earlier, a simple framework or system. And the simpler, the better. Like ours is at 5 pillars of values, vision, beliefs, behavior, systems, right? So once you have a system chosen, or built, there becomes this common language that then begins being shared amongst the employees. And like, that's part of like the increasing health of the culture. People start having conversations like guys are like, hey, are you doing that financial operating system thing? Like, yeah, we're at the vision step. My husband and I did this and that, and I can't believe what he thought our vision was in 10 years. And you start hearing these like water cooler conversations, and it makes you smile because people are now, having conversations that otherwise that they would not have had. You don't have to share personal information, but like the idea that finances or your financial well-being has to be a taboo topic. We hope to just totally be disrupting that idea. It doesn't have to be.
That's great. And can you just talk a little bit more about that? So financial well-being, people are hesitant to talk about it. And so how have you disrupted that?
Probably by just wading straight into it. I think we had something going to our advantage in that, having the 501c3, there's a bit of like a halo effect to not being in financial services, but being experts in delivering financial wellness programming. Like it's close enough. Most of us on the executive team either came from the financial world, like myself in a prior life, or came from the wellness world. So we've been able to disrupt it. Like I hate to downplay the successes that we have, but I think a lot of it is because we show up so different as a nonprofit. And then with that be, do, have mentality and approach, that's how we have done it. I think, just telling someone that it shouldn't be taboo, that doesn't work. People make decisions for their reasons, not ours. So there's a couple talking heads out there on TV and radio that you probably know that tell people what they should do all the time. And that just doesn't fit with the behavior change model that we subscribe to. So paying attention to stages of readiness, like Dr. Prochaska's work, and that non-solicitous, it's like, hey, look, we don't have fangs that come out at the end of the session and try to, convince you to come to our office and buy the mutual fund or life insurance policy or whatever. Like it happens out there, at the free steak dinner seminar circuit that happens way too often. So I don't know if I'm answering your question very well or not, Amber, but I think okay. I think we're just weird, and it's from our unique position.
Yeah, that's great. I have a final question, and I'm thinking if I'm someone at an organization, whether I'm the HR person, I'm in talent management, and I think, wow, I really would like to start a program like this for our employees. And they're thinking, well, we have 300 employees. Well, we have 10,000 employees. We have a global population. How can this person engage and get started providing a program similar to what you've talked about today?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge when we're having conversations with organizations is we're not going to get a very high participation rate. Or how do you promote this, communicate this well enough where people, they listen or they hear you? There's a lot of noise, right? There's a lot of communication already. So it's something that we focus on a lot, is having a high participation rate and then increasing those rates year over year if possible. A few things that I would say that work for us. Of course, we have copywriting going on here, and we're A/B testing what's working, what's getting opened, how long are they staying, are they signing up? So we're constantly testing. So an employer could do their version of that, but I would definitely layer in your financial wellness promotion efforts into the cadence of your other benefit and internal communications, so that it feathers in versus just this standalone. Here we just plug this thing in and it kind of comes out of nowhere, or it's this one communication, it's this one topic that gets mentioned 1 month out of the year and then it goes dormant for 11 months. So if you can make it part of the cadence, the better. Try to mitigate, I keep going here, but any conflicts, even if it's just the perception of a conflict of interest or solicitation, which is kind of unfair. Like if the 401k record keeper, they don't want to take their logo off of things. I get it. But when possible, have this come from the employer versus the vendor. That has made a big difference in the organizations that we've worked with through the years. An internal champion. If you can find, they're there. I can almost promise you, almost every time there's someone there who is a champion and just can't wait to wear that cape, as we refer to them, where they're endorsing, they're promoting, they're encouraging, and they're doing it amongst their peers. Of course, when the employee population sees and believes that the leadership team is, hey, this is important to us and we're committed to providing this to you, that helps. But there's something about that peer to peer. When we can find that champion, we have better numbers. and better outcomes. And then last, I'd say, integrate the participation, if you can, of your financial wellness program into your other wellness rewards if you have that. So have that incentive-based either formula or methodology in place. Those things help. We love to come out of the gates with a really strong launch. It's loud. It's confetti cannon kind of thing because we want to grab their attention as quickly as possible. And we want to get them engaged, super easy, not a lot of clicks, not a lot of registration, get right into the program. Here's your account. Boom. Personal financial assessment, go right into it. So to get like quick wins right out of the gate helps a ton as well.
This is great. Thank you so much, Brent. Thanks for your time today. Thanks for sharing all your insights. I think that people really want to understand financial well-being more. They want to understand it for themselves. They want to understand, employers want to understand how they can help their employees. And I think all of the insights that you share today will be very helpful to all of the folks who have been listening. For more information on a wide range of financial topics, including debt management, budgeting, financial planning, and long-term goal setting for your employees, you can reach out to Workplace Options at service@workplaceoptions.com. And of course, you can always visit our website. Again, this was a great and wonderful conversation and discussion. If you want more information about the white paper that Brent mentioned during the podcast, there'll be a link on the Workplace Options podcast page where you can go download the white paper. And to all of our listeners, we hope you found this conversation informational and insightful. We thank you all so much for listening.